What up and what's happening? Deepak Chona here, SportsMed Analytics, bringing you the 10 biggest injuries of the NFL offseason. Lots to cover here, so let's get it popping. Starting with number 10, Mark Andrews. Now, cautious optimism is how we'd phrase the approach here. Off of late season ankle surgery, pass catcher data favors a strong week 1 return to near 100%. The only yellow flag comes from short-term data that predicts an uptick in missed games due to minor injury during the early phase of his return. Number 9, Deshaun Watson. Watson fractured the socket of his shoulder, underwent surgery after week 12. He's reportedly still not throwing every day, but that's not really concerning. The strategy here is likely load management in order to progress his strength without risking overuse injury like tendonitis that would cause a setback. Average return timeline is about 6 months, and post-surgery outcomes are excellent, with about 90% of football players returning to pre-injury form without recurrence. Not totally clear what level a healthy Deshaun plays at anymore, but data strongly suggest we should find out week 1. Number 8, Anthony Richardson. Richardson is already back to throwing 50 to 60 yards after early season shoulder surgery. Even though it's his throwing shoulder, limited data does suggest that his accuracy shouldn't really be affected. We're not overly concerned about reports of soreness at this time. That is very likely due to his strength continuing to recover. Typically, patients are cleared around 6 months for contact sports, so he should be very much ready to go by training camp. The question of playing style and injury risk here is a good one. Running QBs who lower their shoulders as opposed to sliding carry injury rates similar to running backs, missing an average of about 2 games per season. We think that sliding will be a point of emphasis for Richardson, and that would bring his risk down much closer to average. Number 7, Kyle Pitts. Pitts screams breakout potential now that we know he actually underwent surgery on 2 knee ligaments the prior offseason. These are massive injuries, and data shows consistent production dips up to about 30% that first year back. However, Pitts is young and he's highly athletic, with 90th percentile combine metrics, and second year post-injury data does favor a return to his pre-injury explosiveness. Add in the obvious upgrade in QB, and we view Pitts as a steal at ADP 60. Number 6, Kirk Cousins. Cousins will be about 9 months post-Achilles by camp, and he could realistically be playing unrestricted. At age 36, coming off of this injury, data would very strongly suggest agility and strength deficits. QB data is pretty limited, but we'd expect to see decreased mobility and tolerance of pressure. Now, the Falcons' strong O-line may help neutralize some of that effect, but we also suspect some throwing strength limitations, especially on the deep balls and the bullet passes. Now, as a right-handed quarterback, the right calf is heavily involved in power generation, and this may reveal itself at times, especially early in the season. Number 5, Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers will be almost a full 12 months out by week 1. Given that he throws right-handed, but it's actually his left leg that was injured, that is mechanically more favorable than the opposite case, i.e. Kirk Cousins. Rodgers' scrambling numbers have been on the decline since 2020, and we'd expect that trend to continue. Question marks on the Jets' O-line, in combination with Rodgers' likely decreasing tolerance for pressure, do lead us to expect them to focus on the short, quick passing game, and we'd expect Rodgers to have potential to excel there. But to predict his 2024, his 2022 is worth noting as well. He fractured his thumb week 5, and that would have shut many QBs down for surgery, but he played through it, and his passing numbers dipped, probably because he couldn't grip the ball with full strength. Add in a week 12 rib contusion that typically causes a 2 to 3 week dip for QBs, and that may explain his 2022 drop-off from back-to-back MVP to 26th in QBR. So now, 2 years later, what does it all mean? We'd say a potentially very strong showing from Rodgers if he can stay upright. Number 4, Joe Burrow. Despite wrist surgery, we're strongly expecting Burrow back at about 100% week 1. Data on wrist ligament surgery tells us about 90% of people are able to regain full strength and range of motion here. Add in that he'll probably be fully cleared before camp, and there's real reason for optimism here. Despite a lengthy injury history in his short career so far, we would not label Joe Burrow as injury prone. Torn knee ligaments, followed 2 years later by a calf strain and then this wrist injury, Doesn't point to a concerning pattern or an anatomic weak link, so we're expecting a strong comeback here. Number 3, Tank Dell. Dell broke his ankle, but he should be fully cleared well before camp begins. The good news here is that wide receivers of his playing style don't typically see their efficiency numbers dip in most cases. That trend is further strengthened with his young age and his explosive pre-injury athleticism. The only real remaining question is injury risk going forward. While the ankle isn't a long-term concern, short-term data does predict a slight uptick in the rate of missed games due to minor injuries in the early phase of his return, similar to what we talked about with Mark Andrews. Number 2, TJ Hockenson. Off of ACL and MCL surgery in late January, Hockenson definitely does have a shot to return week 1, but data suggests it's not the most likely outcome. The average return timeline is 10 months, but young players with strong athletic metrics do tend to push that up. Hockenson is age 26 with 80th percentile athletic metrics, so he does fit the accelerated mold. Now, when you factor these variables in, our data predicts a mid-October return date for Hock. Receiving production tends to dip about 15% the first year back, with progressive improvement towards the end of the season. Tight ends also tend to see a small uptick in missed games due to minor injury during those first 6 weeks back. At tight end 11 on Fantasy Pros, the downside seems to be built into the price. Worth strong consideration here, since he'll probably be a solid contributor by the last third of the year. And number 1, Nick Chubb. Probably the worst injury luck in the league. A single multi-ligament knee injury can cost running backs 15 months out and 25% or more of their production and take years off of their careers. Chubb now having 2 of these on one knee is unprecedented territory. Data predicts a production hit of about 20 to 25%, but also rates him only about a 50% chance to even be ready for week 1. You have to also factor in here that most running backs would require a ramp-up period in touches, and that lasts an average of 4 games. Re-injury, longevity, both very applicable concerns. Data shows a 25% uptick in missed time during the first year back from this injury pattern, and we'd have a hard time banking on this knee to hold up to elite athletic demands for more than a couple of years. With all those odds stacked against him, it's kind of hard not to root for a big Chubb comeback. And that's all we got for now. Stay tuned for more injury breakdowns, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're into that type of thing. Catch you next time.